We'll kick things off with Sheffield United, who were the winners of the first Steel City derby in over 5 years after beating Sheffield Wednesday 1-0. It's a big game. The atmosphere did not disappoint in this one. It's got to be said. It had a big game feel and a few meaty challenges along the way, which we always like to see in a game like this, don't we, Peachy? There was one from Barry Bannon in the first half that made me suddenly stand up and start singing the national anthem. It was very, very good. But Sheffield United got the win, Justin, and deserved it, I thought.
Yeah, I really do think it was a lesson in discipline here from Sheffield United. I don't think it wasn't an open game. It was almost a typical derby where the atmosphere is pumped. The players, like, the football's not as sexy as you always hope it's going to be. And it's literally a who blinks first moment. And obviously Sheffield Wednesday blinked first and Sheffield United took advantage. And they were, as you say, fully deserving of this win. Because like I mentioned a moment ago, it was a lesson in discipline, and that's really what got Sheffield United to 3 points. I wouldn't say necessarily discipline necessarily in sort of managing their emotions, but tactically they were spot on throughout.
Yeah, it was a game of few chances, and it wasn't one of those where Sheffield United should have won it by more, but they took the chance when it came and then killed off the game excellently, didn't they? I thought the game plan was pulled off brilliantly from a Sheffield United perspective, and they by and large kept Wednesday at arm's length, held on to the ball really well, controlled the game. They really played the game, not the occasion, I thought. And I don't think Wednesday dealt with it as well, particularly after going behind, where they seem to have lost their heads a little bit. And that's where it helps having an experienced coach like Chris Wilder, who's had these games before, and you've got to give him his fair dues here. When the occasion came, he dealt with it perfectly. The game plan was spot on from his perspective. And Tyrese Campbell is the man who's written himself into Sheffield United folklore, Justin, and it's a magical moment for him, scoring the winner in this game. After a tough few months for him as well, it's got to be said, of course, tragically lost his dad, Kevin Campbell, earlier this year, and unfortunately had some idiots mocking that not long ago. But here he is, the Blades hero, a lovely moment for him in this game.
It really was. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be wrong here, but I don't think Sheffield United fans realise how good of a player they've got on their hands here. Because sometimes, he's not had his record in recent years at Stoke hasn't been great. His goal scoring record, that is. He's obviously had his injury problems as well, and he's arrived on a free transfer, so you can almost excuse it for being. He's going to be a squad player, blah blah blah, but he's so instinctive. His movement's brilliant, and him latching onto that Callum O'Hare pass is just Tyrese Campbell in a nutshell. He's quick to things, and when he's on it, and when he's in an environment where he can thrive, he's going to score goals. And to do it on this on a really big occasion and be the difference maker, I think is going to do him the world of good as well. Because I think I won't say to build a team around him, but if you make him almost a hero, a focal point, then he's going to thrive. And I think this goal should hopefully serve him well going forwards. And as you say, written himself in folklore. Perfect afternoon for him.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on, Justin, because he has had a pretty tough 12 months on the pitch in general, really, hasn't he? Because he did have a very disappointing end to his Stoke career, only scored 3 goals last season. And now Chris Wilder has put more and more faith in him, and he's now matched his goal tally for last season. And that's good to see, isn't it? Because we are both fans of Tyrese Campbell. He was fantastic a few years ago before he suffered a really bad injury, and then he struggled with injuries ever since, really. So if this is him starting to get his career properly back on track, then I'm excited for that, because he's a wonderful footballer on his day and could score a fair few goals for Sheffield United this season. And it's got to be said, Peachy, as far as weeks go, how's this from a Sheffield United perspective? 3 wins from 3, one of them against your big rivals, and an impending takeover after years of waiting for one to happen. Doesn't get much better than that for them, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And when you think I wouldn't say how tumultuous the summer was for Sheffield United, but it was one where there was a lot of uncertainty with the ownership situation, which is, to an extent impacted their transfer recruitment during the summer. I don't think they Chris Wilder said they didn't get the targets that they wanted to get, or as many as they wanted to get. So there's still, certainly a lot of work there. But I just think they've managed the circumstances really well. They weren't putting up trees at the start of the season, but they were just getting results on the board. The performances were slowly improving. But defensively, they've been a different beast all season. Apart from the blip, if you like, against Leeds and Middlesbrough, where they were comfortably second best in both games, they've gone from strength to strength. And as you say, this week has just topped it. They'd be top if it wasn't that 2-point deduction as well. It's been great, and they're going into that really horrendous December period. Very confident, if you like, very confident, but also, they've got January at the end of it as well, where they hopefully takeover will be done by then, and they can go out and get some new signings and bolster their squad even further. So, yeah, it's been perfect. It's been bloody perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, how could I forget? Top of the league, well, joint top of the league would be top of the league if it wasn't for the
top
points
of the league, sort of.
Yeah, that's probably the most important one of all from their perspective, isn't it? But look, I think it's been a game-changing week for Sheffield United, really, because they were getting results before, but the performances weren't outstanding. Now they are controlling games. They're making their quality count, and they're keeping opposition at arm's length. And look, they're still winning games the hard way, like they did in midweek against Bristol City as well. It's a very good mix to have from a Sheffield United perspective, and they've won more games than any other team in the division so far. So they're going in a very good direction. And as I sit here right now, still a long way to go in the season, so a lot can change, but I think Leeds are probably the team most likely to win the league, but I don't think Sheffield United are far behind them. I don't think. I've been just so impressed with them in the past 2 weeks, Justin, and I think they've shown that they are the real deal this season.
Yeah, they're not looking like they're really dipping. When you look at, if you compare them to Sunderland, which we will speak about at some point in the episode, when you think about Sunderland, they've shown that they can compete, but they've had their moments. Whereas I don't think Sheffield United have. I think obviously, barring the Leeds and Middlesbrough game, they've been more or less 7 out of 10 every week. At the very least, I should say. And I think when they get into that December period, I think as long as they can be batting around that top, in the top 3, if you like, come the end of December and heading into January, where they're probably more likely to recruit than any other side in this division. It's looking very, very rosy, and I have to say, give Chris Wilder a lot of credit here, because he's managed every single scenario and situation very, very well, with a lot of humility as well. The emotion, he was very much ahead, head point with the George Baldock, tragic news as well. He's been a real figure point for Sheffield United, and they needed a leader, and he stepped up as he should do, and he's doing it brilliantly.
Yeah, when plenty of people like ourselves, Justin, had doubts over him as a manager, whether he could still do it at this level now, which I think we were right. It was completely fair for us to raise those doubts, considering how his recent managerial career has gone. But fair play to him, he has done terrifically well so far this season, and Sheffield United fans have every right to be very excited about how the remainder of the season is going to go for them. So a perfect week for Sheffield United. Not so good a week for Sheffield Wednesday. Justin, what can they take away from this game, do you think?
It is quite difficult, because it was a typical derby where there wasn't a lot of gilt-edged chances. I do think Wednesday reacted fairly well as soon as things settled down after the goal. I do think they maybe should have brought on Michael Smith a little bit sooner, because as soon as he came on, he really did pen Sheffield United back, and I think given a little bit more time, they could have carved a few more openings. But I think it's probably a lesson in managing the occasion a little bit more efficiently, if you like. I think Danny Raw will take a lot of learnings from that, because it's his first Steel City derby. Chris Wilder is a very experienced pro in that scenario, so he will understand how to handle that. Whereas maybe Danny Raw didn't. That's probably a little bit too much criticism, because I don't think Wednesday were terrible here. I just think it was a tight game that Sheffield United edged, and I think that's all you can really take away from it.
Yeah, don't really have much else to add there from a Wednesday perspective, Justin. Let's move on, shall we, to possibly the most eye-catching scoreline of the weekend. Middlesbrough 5, Luton Town 1. 3-word reviews for Borough. Faz says 5-star performance. Steptoe says on the charge. Sedgefield says Carrick Ball is back. Jamie on our Patreon says goal happy slags. For Luton, Jason says, I'm going to cry. James says, I hate football. Ben says, farewell, handsome Rob. Skeeter on our Patreon says, thrown under the bus. Yeah, Luton's 8th defeat of the season from their first 15 games and leaves them only outside the bottom 3 on goals scored. And it's got to be said, Middlesbrough have absolutely battered them here, Justin.
Yeah, it was a really convincing game. It really was. It was a showcase in what Middlesbrough are capable of, but also how far Luton have fallen. It's not a Luton performance you really befit of them, where they were so open and they allowed Middlesbrough to be very creative, ruthless and aggressive in chance creation. It was a brilliant performance from Borough and probably one of the worst performances of the season out of any team in the division this season for Luton. It was really quite a shocking one. I mean, just the ease in which Middlesbrough passed it around at times. Don't get me wrong, they had a well coached setup, but I think Luton of old would not have allowed that to happen. You know, there wasn't even any late challenges or anything like that. You know, you just get up the arse of opposition. There's nothing. It was a rollover and tickle my belly performance from Luton.
Yeah, and they got a bloody good tickling, didn't they?
Good old tickling, yeah.
Good old tickling. Yeah, it's got to be said, 2 of Middlesbrough's goals were outstanding. Ooh. The turn by Emmanuel Latela for the second was sublime, and then the finish by Finazas for the 5th was just pure class. And their finish was on top. Their finishing in general was just on top form here, wasn't it? Which is great to hear. And they completely outclassed this Luton team. It was a very, very promising performance from a Borough perspective. And we'll talk more about Borough shortly, because it feels like this could be a knockout blow for Rob Edwards, doesn't it, Justin? There are a couple of videos doing the rounds on social media of Luton fans angrily reacting to him coming over to applaud the supporters after the game. Rob Edwards did say, We've given everything for this football club. I've loved the 2 years. It's been one hell of a ride, and we've achieved things probably no one thought were possible. I'm realistic. Whatever will be, will be. And it sounds like this may very well be the end, Justin. And it feels like this may very well be the end.
Yeah, it does. It's really sad. It really is, because he's an incredibly nice guy. An incredibly nice guy. He's a stepdad that gets you a beer. But now your mum's sort of leaving him, and now you're just like, wow, this guy's a legend. But, you know, he's not making your mum happy, but he makes you happy, because he is a nice guy.
Something you want to tell us, mate? Or?
Oh, a child of divorce, that's all I need. That's all you need to know. But, you know, being a nice guy. I mean, I could happily talk you through my childhood, but I'll take a while. We're good. Back to the football. But, you know, being a nice guy doesn't take away from the fact that this Luton team has been a disaster this season, an absolute disaster. You know, I was quite seething of the performance here, but they look bereft of confidence. They look poorly organised defensively, and I think worst of all, incredibly lethargic. It looks like they're on game week 37, not game week 15. That's as bad as indictment as you can say, because if your team's going to look fit enough, then what have you been doing?
Yeah, we've been doing this show for 5+ years now, Justin, and in that time, I've sort of developed a good sense of when a manager's time has really ran out, and I've definitely got that here. I know several neutrals may say he deserves more time for all that Rob Edwards has done for Luton, but I mean, one of our patrons who's a Luton fan pretty much summed it up pretty well on the Discord, saying he's not Edwards out, but at the same time, he's not bothered if he goes at this stage. Because I think a lot of Luton fans will respect what he's done for the club, but it's becoming increasingly hard to make an argument for him, isn't it? Because this has now gone from a bad start to them just being plain bad. There have been moments where they look like turning it around, but they've simply proven to be false dawns, and Rob Edwards sounds like a beaten man when he's doing interviews after games. And you've essentially got to ask, are Luton going in the right direction with him right now? They're obviously not, are they?
No, they're not. And it's a good point you raised about him being a beaten man after games. How many interviews, or I've seen so many interviews this season where he looks completely defeated. Like he's just
didn't happen last season, did it? Even though Luton lost for most weeks, he still had that optimism and that bounce about him. But he's completely lost it now.
It's gone. And I think when you lose that as a coach, where do your players get confidence from? Then, if you don't emit that yourself, where do your players get it from? And I think that's probably where he's going wrong a little bit. Don't get me wrong, you can't be deluded. And I don't think there have been many positives to take out of Luton performances this season. There have probably been 2 or 3 very good performances from Luton. The rest have been very, very below average to awful. And I think that's why, he's very much in this situation where it's the time's ticking, to that point. But Luton have regressed. They've massively regressed for me. I do think it is a bit of a hangover from the last 2 years, if you like. They've lost a lot of experience. Dan Potts, Luke Berry, Sonny Bradley, Henry Lansbury over the past couple of years. I think that changes the guard, does impact things, and I think they've not really replaced the personalities, if you like. You can replace the quality, but not the personality, and that's what Luton are lacking right now.
One thing I will add as well is that I don't think it is completely down to Edwards, kind of following on from what you were saying, actually, Justin, because there are serious issues in the squad which didn't get addressed in the summer, particularly with depth, because in my eyes they needed at least a couple more midfielders, a centre half, a right wing back, maybe even more than that. The bottom line is, though, that this squad shouldn't be just outside the bottom 3, should it? And as we said at the top of the show, this international break is a renowned burial ground for Championship managers, and I'm sad to say Rob Edwards and his beautiful smile look the most likely to be a victim of that.
It's a smile we've not seen for a while, Ryan.
No, and that's the saddest thing about this.
That's the tragedy here. We've not seen that beautiful smile for a long time now.
Yeah, and if this is the end, I imagine he will get a job soon, won't he? I don't think he'll be out of work for long, so hopefully we will see that smile again. I'll tell you what, that's not a bad shout, Justin. That's not a bad shout.
Mark Robbins to Luton.
Yeah, well, it'll be the swap that no one saw coming. But yeah, we'll talk more about Coventry and who's potentially coming in there later on. But Middlesbrough, back-to-back wins for them now. Scored 9 goals in their 2 games this week. It's not bad going, is it? And I've got to say, Justin, it looks to me like they're becoming one of the main teams to fear in the division.
But when you play as good as they do going forward, it's frightening. You mentioned Latte Laff's second goal. His turn was brilliant, but the Finazas pass for him was even better. It was beautifully precise and lifted over the Luton defence. It was magnificent. And when you've got an attacking trio of Finazas, Ben Doak and Ronnie McGree, you're going to create chances. And you are right, they are a team to fear. They're a team on the up. I think the international break's almost come at the wrong time for Middlesbrough. Actually, it's probably come at the right time as well, because they got a chance to settle and go again. And almost reset for their December fixtures. They don't. I think it came to around this point last season where they had a really bad injury crisis, especially defensively, which really knocked them off the rails. It's not looking bad at the moment. And as I say, one player I want to mention is Finazas. I really do think he has the potential to be a player of the season in the Championship this season, because what I've seen in the last few weeks is magic.
It's big praise, but I'm not going to disagree with you, Justin, because he has been phenomenal so far. You say that attacking 3 is going to create chances. They were creating chances, weren't they? Just couldn't put the bloody fuckers away, could they? And I mean, I've been so impressed with Middlesbrough. I mean, so impressed with them throughout the whole season so far that I wouldn't rule out the automatics with them, I don't think. I think they have got everything they need to finish there. And, I mean, it may sound like revisionism on our behalf, but they were genuinely playing like a top 2 team at the start of the season, weren't they? Just couldn't put those chances away. Now, they are, with great aplomb. Latte Laff, Tommy Conway, Bergzorg, all firing. Ben Doak, my oh my Ben Doak, one of the most exciting young talents in the division. I'm starting to run out of words to say about him, because I'm becoming increasingly certain he will go on to be an elite player. I love watching him play. And then the midfield 3 of As you mentioned just then, Justin, Hayden Hackney, Aidan Morris that might be the best in the division as far as midfield threes go. Either them or Sheffield United, I would say, out of midfield threes. And then the defence is much more solid than their goals tally suggests. They've been very unlucky to concede as many as they have if you look at the underlying data. But look, the top two race is wide open this season. We've said that on numerous occasions, haven't we, Justin? And Michael Carrick has got this Borough side clicking. So I think they've got every chance this season, Justin.
Yeah, you probably convinced me. Going into this episode, I was probably going to sit on the fence and say probably more of a dark horse, and that might still be right. But it's a long season, but they've got the squad ability to be worth a look in. To be in with a shout at the top two, and what they're doing is they're peaking at a good time. I'm not going to criticise Sunderland too much, but they're starting to drop points, whereas Middlesbrough almost got that out of the system early on in the season, and they're starting to hit their stride. Obviously, coming into the international break and coming out of it, if they start to miss chances again and drop points, that's where it becomes a problem. But it's looking like consistency is starting to settle in, which is good, which is very, very good. And as I say, it's a good time for that to happen in that final international window.
QPR have now dropped to the bottom of the Championship after losing 2-0 away at Leeds. 3-word reviews for Leeds. Lamnam says Bortress Ellen Road. Alistair says dull but efficient. Jordan says business as usual. Darren says moaning on together. For QPR, Josh says Marty relegation party. Clive says completely bloody useless. Yeah, Jayden Bogle scored in the first half before Joel Pirro got the second in the 94th minute. I really enjoyed the carnage for the first Leeds goal. Excellent bit of pinball in goal. That one. It's just carnage, wasn't it? But yeah, Justin, we've begun to establish recently that Leeds games fall into one of three categories. The first is the one where they're clearly the better side and justified being the strong favourites for promotion this season. The second is where they've won, but they've made pretty hard work of it. The third is them failing to win and not really deserving to win either. This game definitely falls into the second category, doesn't it? And that's becoming quite a regular thing with Leeds United.
It's a very least thing to do, isn't it? But also, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, what is your definition of making it hard work? I'm asking you now. What is your definition of making it hard work?
By killing off the game a lot earlier than the 94th minute.
But Leeds were very comfortable, though. I think that's the argument I'll make here. Is yes, they didn't kill the game off earlier, and Daniel Farke said that himself. But it's not like QPR were carving Leeds open. It's not like they were hanging on to things. It was a comfortable win.
I wouldn't say comfortable because, in fairness, all the data does point to Leeds this being pretty straightforward for them. But QPR did have a couple of chances. Sam Field had a good one in the second half, and then there was a great chance right near the end, which was completely wasted by Jean Chella skying a shot into Rose Ed in about the 85th minute, I think it was. So that was when the score was 1-0 still. Mm-hmm. So look, Leeds missed plenty of chances and they could have put the game to bed a lot earlier because QPR defended woefully at times in this game. But what I'm saying is they didn't punish them for it, Justin. So on another day, Leeds could have made a bit of a mess of this. Mm-hmm. And I accept that they got the win. That's all that matters. But there's definitely room for improvement is what I'm alluding to here.
Yeah, I think in killing the game off, certainly, but I just think it was a game managed well by Leeds. I think when you've got a support base like Leeds, where the fans are very passionate, ground's full all the time, there becomes an expectation with goals and whatnot. And Daniel Farke being an attacking coach, he wants his teams to score goals. But I do think Leeds managed the game fairly well, and I think I said it in our preview. QPR are an awkward side to play against. They picked up good points, and clean sheets against some good sides like Burnley, for example, who beat Leeds or that. So it's never going to be a walk in the park. But I think Leeds got it as close to a walk in the park as it possibly could hit, without looking like a 3 or 4-0, if you like.
A lot more room for improvement with QPR, though, isn't there? Because it's now no win in 11, and as previously mentioned, bottom of the table now. And we have it's been a common theme in this episode, Justin. Managers under pressure during this merciless international break. What do you think? Do you reckon it could be the end of the Marty party?
I think I'll say the same thing as I said for Mark Robbins, in that sentiment has to go out the window to some extent. in terms of club progression. And I think the worst thing as well is they're conceding so many goals. That Jayden Bogle goal, for example. Leeds almost outnumbered QPR players in the box at that point. And there was no reaction from QPR players to several rebounds until Jayden Bogle managed to do whatever he did. I just don't know what he did, but managed to scramble the ball into the goal. And I think it's that element there. I don't know if it's just a lack of confidence. I don't know whether it's just wanting to play a slightly different way or not. But the good things that Marty Cifuentes instilled in this team, i.e. defensive qualities, just isn't there. They're not creating anything from set pieces, which is what they were very good at last season as well. I'm just not seeing anything positive come out. They've slowly got worse. This season, which is... that's where you start to make it a really difficult case to defend Marty Cifuentes staying, unfortunately.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying, Justin. I think out of the three managers who are heading into this international break under serious pressure, Cifuentes is probably the one who I think is the most likely to stay, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to go. Because, look, QPR are expected to kick on the season after what was a pretty up and down season last year, and then being bottom after 15 games is a massive underachievement, whichever way you look at it. Scoring goals continues to be a huge problem from last season, and defensively they haven't been at the same standards that they were before under Cifuentes. Personally, I would give him more time. I think he's been very unlucky with injuries because they are essentially missing their three best players plus a few others, and I don't think they've been terrible, despite them being bottom of the table. They haven't been great by any means, but I don't think they've been absolutely terrible. I think another thing you've got to take into account, QPR don't have a glittering record when it comes to appointing managers in recent years either. I think that's a really, really big thing here. Cifuentes is the best one they've made for several years. So it's all well and good saying a manager's time is up, they need to get someone else in, but will QPR appoint someone better than him? I'm not sure, Justin.
Well, I think that's where you start to create an argument, is whether or not the squad's good enough in that case. It's certainly better than it was last season, but I think the Championship has improved, because if you look at 24th to, when we're looking on the league table now, 24th to 12th, I think that's a big cohort of teams there where they've really improved themselves. The likes of Derby, Norwich, Sheffield Wednesday, Coventry, they'll find themselves in that cohort of teams, and you've got to ask the question whether or not QPR have got better squads than those teams, and managers who can manage with those squads as well. So, rather than pinning the blame on Cifuentes, which I do realise I was saying, but results-wise, it's hard to make a case for him. But at the same time, you do start to ask questions about QPR and the recruitment strategy and whether or not this squad's good enough to compete. And if it isn't, there's no manager that's going to get them out of danger, is there?
Yeah, I think that's something you've got to take into account, Justin. And one final thing I'll say is QPR aren't a brilliantly run club, are they? This is a club who lose millions of pounds a year and were in massive danger of going down last season before Cifuentes saved them, because their recruitment's been very mixed for a long time as well. So I wouldn't say with this poor start that everyone should be looking straight to the manager. I think the fingers have also got to be pointed elsewhere at the club, not just Marty Cifuentes. Right, it's now time for us to check out how our second tier bet builder and multiple with SBK got on, which included our game of the week, as well as Justin and I's two bankers from Friday. So our bet builder was on Sheffield United versus Sheffield Wednesday, and a £10 stake on that was due to return £110. We had Sheffield United to win, of course, a winner, under 3.5 goals, another winner, with there only being one, and under 5.5 cards, there were 4. So another winner there. The only one that let us down was Harrison Burrows to have a shot on target, which didn't happen. Didn't have a shot in this game, unfortunately. I am heartbroken, Justin.
If Barry Bannon didn't take him out in the first half, the man with the 5'3" of an attitude didn't take him out in the first half, that'd have come in. Baz's fault.
I would have had faith as well. So it's all Barry Bannon's fault. Make sure everyone knows that. And then a £10 stake on our multiple was due to return £40. We had a Sheffield United win, a Leeds win, and a Derby win. Of course, it's Derby who let us down, Justin.
They got derbied, didn't they? It was a unfortunate goal. We were Jerry Yates's thick head away from that coming in.
This is the only time we're going to have Derby in this multiple all season. And of course, the one time that they're involved is that they're the one who let us down from another winner. So that's unfortunate, but we'll be back with our next round of picks a week on Friday in the preview show with SBK. Right, let's have a quick break. After that, we'll go through some more of the action from across the Championship this weekend. Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the Second Tier podcast. And you know what time it is. It's time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero. Because what we're doing here every single week, we're asking you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. Now, that could be someone who drove you to a recent away day, or it could be a friend or relative who got you into supporting your club in the first place. Whatever it is, we want to find out so we can honour these legendary heroes in society, but who don't get the attention that they deserve. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero for this weekend, send us a voice note now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes. And of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of Jameson to share with your winner. But on to this week's nomination. We've got this message from Lewis, who wanted to nominate Jeanette.
My name's Lewis. I'm a Norwich fan. Yellows. I'd like to give a massive shout out to my auntie who used to take me to games when I was younger. She took me to Old Trafford away for the first time, to the mighty Carrow Road multiple times whenever I went down to visit. She would always be the first person to suggest going to the footy, and I'd always have a great time spending some time with family and getting behind the boys.
There we go. Lewis nominating his auntie for this weekend's Jameson Weekend Hero. I've got to say, Justin, always good to hear a good Norfolk accent on this show. It doesn't happen enough, if you ask me.
A good Norfolk accent. I don't think I could disseminate it. I thought Lewis had a very, very normal accent, and it came through. It came through nicely.
Sounded like a Norfolk accent. I mean, the only reason I say that is because obviously I used to live in Norwich, so I always got a bit of a soft spot for accents from that part of the world,
and a soft spot for Lewis's auntie as well, apparently.
Well, she's a wonderful lady from the sounds of it. And with that being said, let's raise a glass of this Jameson Ginger and Lime to Lewis's auntie. A quick swig from Justin and I. Oh. This honestly is such a
best time of the week.
Show. Just because we get to drink Jameson Junior and Lime every week, Justin. It's class. It's absolutely class. So well done to Lewis and his auntie. And remember, you can nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero right now by sending us a voice note on WhatsApp. The number is in the show notes. So just 60 seconds explaining your nomination, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a bottle of Jameson. Christmas presents. You must be over 18 to enter. UK only, and T's and C's apply. Let's go on to some more action from this weekend then, Justin. And we'll go to West Brom, who got their first victory in 9 by winning 2-1 away at Hull on Sunday afternoon. But it, of course, piles the pressure on Tim Volter with the Tigers, now without a win in 7. Basically, what happened in this one is West Brom got the 2 goals early and then said, yeah, you know what, we're happy with this and we're not going to give it away now. And when you've got a Carlos Corberán team holding on to a lead, it's an absolute nightmare trying to take them away from it, isn't it?
And when they've not had that feeling for a while, they're going to bloody cling on to it, aren't they? Like a bloody lost teddy bear. It is, it was a well-managed game. I actually thought the game itself was fairly open. There was a lot of loose balls in the box, some decent saves from both goalkeepers and misses as well. But you saw it, West Brom just possess the quality that Hull do not have. And you saw it in full flow, the finishing. I mean, Josh Madger scoring a goal in the 6-yard box. Who knew? And West Brom just managed the game brilliantly. It was a really good performance from Carlos Corberán's side. Not the worst performance in the world from Hull, but as I say, West Brom had the quality that Hull did not have.
Yeah, I don't think it was the best performance by West Brom either. It's got to be said, but when they have been so long without a win, they'll take any win that comes their way, won't they? So it's a really, really big, important win for them. But of course, the headline here, Justin, is that Hull fans are increasingly close to the end of their tether with Tim Volter, and the continuing theme of this episode, I get the feeling this might be it for him as well, because we said this in the week. We were promised heart attack football. We've not really seen that often. Instead, we've had pretty dull football, and he has had to deal with a lot, like the incredible amount of squad turnover and getting used to the league. He's not managed in before. the bottom line here is, though, he's got an owner who's very ambitious, and I would be surprised if Volta lasts much longer, Justin. And it might be this international break, it might not be. I don't expect it to last much longer, though, because the vast majority of Hull fans seem to have decided that Tim Volta is not the man for them.
Perhaps fairly or unfairly. I think he's been dealt a massive blow in terms of Liam Miller firstly being ruled out for the season, and then Bellumi being ruled out for the season as well. They're huge players for this team, and if you've got an attack-minded coach in Tim Volta and you lose two of your most technical attackers, it's going to be a difficult scenario. But that's where you look to the ownership and go, did you actually appoint the right man? You know, I've alluded to it in previous episodes that Tim Volta was appointed very early on, 31st of May, if I remember rightly. You know, and then the recruitment from that was long and arduous. It took a very long time to get a squad together. I just think the Hull owners probably committed a bit of an own goal with appointing Tim Volta. You know, I do like Tim Volta. He's a character, but he's an attack-minded coach, isn't he? I don't think he's got a squad to play that. And again, it's a squad that is missing its two best attackers, which is going to make it even harder.
Well, let me ask you a question, Justin, then. If they didn't get Tim Volta in this summer and they stuck with Liam Vizzina, do you think they would be in a much better position right now?
Well, I was going to bring this up. I think this squad and this team suits a more pragmatic coach, like a Liam Vizzina. So I do think they'd be in a better position. I don't think they'll be, massively better off, because I think the squad scenario in the summer was a joke. The recruitment strategy was a joke. It was poor. I think it's been vastly overlooked because of how much money and quantity of players Hull brought in towards the end of the window. You can't give a manager that sort of time and then load him up with expectation. It's not fair. It's not possible. You're expecting someone to get immediate results with a team he's not had for more than 3 months. You can't do it. You cannot do it. So I think having someone who's been a part of the system for a few years, like a Liam Vizzina, who's a bit more pragmatic, like a Liam Vizzina, I think you'll be better off.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. Hull would 100% be better off right now if they had Liam Vizzina. First of all, he knows some of the players who were still at the club, and he would be able to continue building on what they did last season. And also because his pragmatism got results as well, didn't it? Tim Volta has tried to be more pragmatic with this whole team, despite his promises of what his brand of style. No, well, it doesn't seem like he can it? And that's where we are now, with Hull trying to be a bit more pragmatic and it just not working out for them. So that just makes the Liam Vizzina decision even more bizarre from a few months ago. And now they're paying for it. And I mean, as someone who was a bit of a Liam Vizzina fan, it makes me quite difficult right now to sit here right now and go, well, I feel sorry for Hull, because it feels like they've made a rod for their own back with that decision, haven't they? And now here they are in a pretty difficult position. And you mentioned the two injuries there, Justin, Liam Miller, Mohamed Bellumi. Those two cost a combined £7 million. They're now both out for the season. They've got Oscar Zambrano, who's potentially getting a 2-year suspension for an alleged failed drugs test. They're out of form, and they've got a manager who's at risk of the sack. It really, rains, pours, etc. It's not going well for Paul Hull at all. But well done to West Brom, who, despite their poor form, in quotation marks, are still in the top 6 with only 2 defeats this season. So not that bad at all, really. Portsmouth got just their second win of the season by winning 3-1 at home to Preston. 3-word reviews for Pompey. We actually had loads, Justin, of people saying exactly the same thing. Colby Bishop's magic for Preston PNE on our Patreon says, I'm not shocked. Yeah, great moment in this game for Colby Bishop, who had to undergo open heart surgery back in August after a potential risk which was flagged up during pre-season. He's not actually played since then, but made his return in this game. Actually, a big surprise that he was named on the bench. It wasn't something people were expecting for him to be included here, but he came on in the 78th minute and then scored a penalty. Just a really moving moment for him, and I tell you what, they could bloody use him as well, couldn't they?
Oh god, yeah, definitely. As you say, it was a wonderful moment. Yeah, it truly was. You could see the lift in the crowd as well when he came on, And then the moment he puts away the penalties is brilliant. He's a player I really, really like. It goes without saying, I think he scored 20 goals last season in League One for Portsmouth. He was a big difference maker. He's a good mix of a forward for them, and he's a focal point, and he's got that instinct in front of goal that I don't think Portsmouth have got striker-wise. So him returning to the team is a huge, huge moment. And like I said, it just lifted the club. It was a really good performance from Portsmouth, I thought. A brilliant performance. But this just tips it. Because, what he had to go through on a personal basis is unimaginable. For him to come back just a mere month later is incredible.
Yeah, it really is like superhuman stuff, isn't it? Coming back from something as serious as that. So, I mean, seeing him was probably my moment of the weekend, really, because that's what it's all about, this kind of thing. And they bloody need him as well, because as we were alluding to in midweek, their striker options have really not been performing so far. And Portsmouth desperately needed a win here, didn't they, Justin? And they bloody got it. They bloody got it.
Yeah, but it was brilliant. It was a really good performance. I thought they pretty much outclassed Preston. They dominated the chances. They bullied them in the first half. They went direct, and Preston really could not cope. It was a very worthy win from Portsmouth, and a performance we've probably not seen yet this season, where they've consistently outclassed a team throughout the 90 minutes. I think I've said it on many occasions that Portsmouth have been probably the better team on 2 or 3 occasions. This is definitely the fourth, because they were really good. And one thing I want to mention as well, and really shine a light on, is that Jacob Murphy. I have to question it every single time. Twins, man, twins. The Jacob Murphy pile driver. Good Lord. Ooh.
Now you're making me question, is it Jacob Murphy? I'm not actually sure. No, it's Josh Murphy. It is
shit.
Josh Murphy. We were going to make that mistake at some time this season, Justin. Don't you worry about it. But yeah, that was a beautiful, beautiful goal. And it wasn't just a much needed win. It was a great performance as well, because they absolutely battered Preston in the first half. It was a bit more even in the second half, but they fully deserved the win over the 90 minutes. So it's a big relief for John Mousinho. Otherwise, he could have been one of those who was a bit nervous over this international break, but also because I don't think they've been the worst side in the division by any means. Have they been amazing? No, not by any means. I think they have been a bit unlucky, though. And so hopefully this is the moment where their luck turns. I will reiterate that Portsmouth have got pretty winnable games all the way up until the end of the year now. So if they do get going, then they really could start climbing up the table, particularly with Colby Bishop back, because that is such a huge positive for them. Preston looked like they had turned a corner not long ago, Justin, but are now without a win in 5. They sit 20th. Could potentially get a boost soon, though, because they have been linked with Ryan Kent, the former Fenerbahce and Rangers winger, who's a free agent. Quickly, Justin, do you think that's a good sign if it happens?
It would be a good signing, because he's got obvious quality. I am surprised to see the link, mainly because I saw so many clubs linked with him for the past, what feels like 2 years, ever since he left Rangers, really, and no one's really picked him up yet. That maybe raises some eyebrows, but it's clear he's got obvious quality at championship level. And I think if he goes to Preston, it'll be a bit of a marquee signing for them, because there's an obviously brilliant player there. It's just about getting out of him. And I think if someone's going to do it, it's going to be Paul Heckingbottom. The man got goals out of Ollie McBurney, which a lot of managers struggle to do before Paul Heckingbottom. So, as I say, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Heckingbottom.
Yeah, he used to work with Ryan Kent as well, didn't he, at Barnsley? So, yeah, they've got that relationship there as well. Let's go to Coventry, who came from 2 goals down to draw 2-2 away at Sunderland in their first game since sacking Mark Robbins. 3-word reviews from Coventry fans. Sky Blue Cal on our Patreon says, second half domination. Ben says, that's for Robbins. Jack says, fight till end. For Sunderland, Michael says, hate playing Coventry. Joseph says, it's always Coventry. Stu says, slight little bump. Yeah, pretty crazy game, not just because of the comeback, but also because both of Sunderland's goals were glorious, particularly Dennis Serkins. What a goal that was, Justin.
It's one of them that it's shot so fast. Like, the pace of the ball is so fast that you barely see it when the camera's rolling. You almost have to drop it frame by frame to really, really appreciate it. But the Wilson Easterdale goal was ridiculous as well. Like, how does he execute that sort of flick volley that he did. I can't fathom it. I can't work out the physics in my head. But both goals were tremendous, and it's such a shame that they surrendered a 2-goal lead because no one's really remembering that now. What a shame.
No, it is a shame because it looked like it was going to be a brilliant afternoon for Sunderland, getting back on track after 2 draws. And then Coventry pulled off a terrific comeback once again, out of nowhere pretty much, Justin, didn't they?
Well, it was the Haji Wright goal. I can't remember who played it. It may have been Dan Neil, but it came off a Sunderland player into the path of Haji Wright, and it's that sort of look you need sometimes from a Coventry perspective, when you're not quite at it and you give up a 2-0 lead to 2 spectacular goals, that bit of luck falls your way. And Coventry took it. Similarly with the Jack Redoney goal, actually, they did threaten a couple of times with crosses from deep. Sunderland didn't really learn that lesson, but I think the lack of control in the second half from a Sunderland perspective will be the big disappointment there, because Coventry saw blood. Nerves ramped up as soon as Haji Wright got that first goal, and Coventry, they were in the ascendancy at that point.
Yeah, it was Rhys Carr who was the interim manager in charge of this one, just a first-team coach at Coventry. He's become only the second manager to get anything away at the Stadium of Light this season. So not bad to have on his CV, is it? So just makes the comeback even more remarkable. But Regis Lebris admitted Coventry deserved a point in the second half, and Sunderland weren't really good enough. So a pretty frustrating week for Sunderland, with 3 draws on the bounce in 3 games that they probably should be winning. Yeah, definitely a drop in standards, which they'll hope to amend over the international break. But a great response by Coventry after Mark Robbins's dismissal in the week. It was always interesting to see how they would respond, and this was a great way to do it. Will they appoint a new manager during the break? We will see, Justin. The current bookies' favourite for the job is Frank Lampard, an appointment which I assume you'd be well on board with, Justin.
I don't really want to talk about it. I have 0 positives for Frank Lampard as a manager, much to the point that his managerial exploits have completely diminished his legendary status as a footballer, as a player. For me, pisses me off. I feel like new listeners want to know why, but the old listeners will know why. But if you want context, his Derby job was a poor one. He essentially kick-started the I think, in my opinion, the run into administration with some reckless spending, £5 million on Jack Marriott, for example, who's now a League One footballer. They scraped the playoffs that season. It was a good enough squad to at least finish comfortably in the top 6, if not more. Yes, he went to Chelsea and they got in the Champions League, but they should have with the squad they had. The second spell was terrible. The Everton spell was even worse. His teams rely purely on individual ability, not just like when you mention Leeds rely on individuals, not like that. He relies on a Harry Wilson, for example, scoring from 35 yards. There's nothing positive about Frank Lampard other than it's a bit of PR. Doug King, if you make this appointment, you're fucked it.
Yeah, if Frank Lampard gets appointed here, I will lose all faith in Coventry knowing what they're doing. Obviously, they've taken a lot of flack for sacking Mark Robins, but I don't think it's a bad move if they get the next appointment right. This wouldn't be it.
No.
That's the bottom line here. It is only the bookies' odds, we've got to say. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Frank Lampard, or it doesn't mean they're even considering him. But just the thought of it puts me into a cold sweat.
Pisses me off.
So it pisses Justin off.
I'm in a mood now.
Doesn't make me too happy either, and that's not a position you want to be in, Coventry. So just in case they are thinking of doing it, don't. Please, for the love of God, don't. Oh, he got Derby in the playoffs. He got Chelsea into the Champions League, did he? Don't.
Grow up.
Ignore all of that. Grow up. Have you got the message yet? Don't do it. Norwich lost at home for the first time in over a year after being beaten 2-0 by Bristol City. 3-word reviews for Norwich. Adams says streak is over. Cartwheels says injuries, depth, reality. Got to be said though, Justin, Bristol City are bloody flying, aren't they?
They are. They really are. Both goals were brilliant as well, and a really good application of a good away performance. There were quick breakaways, both the goals, and it's refreshingly brilliant. And it highlights Liam Manning's ability to mix things up. Carrow Road, whatever state Norwich are in, going to Carrow Road will be a difficult fixture. And Bristol City, I wouldn't say made it look easy, but they made it look, in a way, comfortable. And I think the type of goals that they scored, they're not an accident. I think they defensively they cut the passing avenues for Norwich and gave them next to no joy at times in wide areas. It was a near perfect away performance from Bristol City, and that ability to identify game by game basis from Liam Manning is I think the reason why they are kicking on in form.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely right, Justin. There is something to be said about this result, because it is an absolutely brilliant result for Bristol City and shows that there are another side who really mean business, because they have been on this decent run recently where I think they've only lost 1 in 10, I think it is off the top of my head. Will point out that Norwich are in the midst of a crippling injury crisis that has got to be pointed out here, but to be the first team to beat Norwich in over a year at Carrow Road is some going. So, look, they had a bit of a shaky start in this game with Norwich hitting the post early on, but they did brilliantly in killing the game off, because from the point Bristol City went ahead, Norwich didn't really have any chance of note. So it was an expertly performed Bristol City game plan, really, in this one. And it's Mehmeti's goal was brilliant. Dribbles past one player, then strikes it from 20 yards out. Brilliant goal. And he's now got 3 goals in his last 5 games, Justin. He's someone I really like. I will be honest, I sometimes forget about him at Bristol City just because they've got so many other talented attackers. But he's having a great season. He's still only 23, by the way. Great player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's really stepped up this season. I think he showed moments last season, but nothing as consistent as what we're seeing now. And that's obviously to Bristol City's benefit. And I think it's so important to have a player of his quality and have them in form and consistent, because he can grab a game by the scruff of the neck, as he did at times here, and take control of it. It was a really good performance. And again, that form he's in now, he's a difficult player to play against, and when he's happy and confident, as any technical player is, they're a frightening prospect. And Mehmeti, all good things go through him at times for Bristol City, and you're seeing that very often now. Yeah,
he's a really neat and tidy player, isn't he? Who makes stuff happen. He's always been a great dribbler, even back when he was at Wycombe. We've just needed a bit more end product with him, and he's got 4 goals for the season now, which matches his tally from last season already. So he's improving a lot. The problem is he's often had a habit of going quiet for a while, so he just needs to make sure that he keeps it up. Easier said than done, obviously. But if this start to the season is anything to go by, then he could be one of Bristol City's most important players this season. And the final game we'll cover in this episode, Justin, is Plymouth, who got just their 2nd point on the road this season by drawing 1-1 away at Derby. 3-word review for Plymouth from Matt on our Patreon. An away point? Yeah, 2nd point on the road. I was at this game, Justin. Derby 1-0 up, looking very, very comfortable. I went to the toilet, and the bloke next to me said, "Oh, just scored a free kick." And I was like, "Oh, really? So we're 2-0 up?" And he said, "No, Plymouth have." And I was like, you're fucking joking, aren't you? I was not happy. Not happy at all. So I completely missed that goal. But I tell you what, full credit to Plymouth. I thought they actually played really well here. Didn't offer a whole lot in terms of attack, but I thought they kept Derby by and large at arm's length.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot wrong here. Didn't create much, as you say, but it was a case of don't give Derby too many openings. And I think the probably most disappointing thing is for Wayne Rooney, and I think he said this in his post-match presser, that they know that Derby are very good from set pieces, and they didn't. They fell behind to a set piece. But I think the biggest compliment you can give to this performance from Plymouth is lots of balls flashed across their box, but Derby didn't get on the end of them. I think that it wasn't a case of them being opened up very often. That's a big positive, and I would say a massive jump in a direction that Plymouth need to go in away performance-wise, because they were terrible against Leeds. Terrible. They turned up to lose, whereas they turned up here to draw, and they drew.
I will be honest, in the first 20 minutes, I thought this could have been a pretty bad game for Plymouth. And Plymouth fans actually, after 15 minutes, were chanting, "How shit must you be? It's only 1-0, which I enjoyed. I think you've also got to give a bit more credit to Derby's first goal, Justin. You said he was scored from a set piece. It wasn't just a set piece. It was a Jerry Yates worldie, mate. Oh, my God, what a goal that was.
Oh, yeah, when I wasn't at the game, but you literally put in a group chat, "What the fuck was that?" in capital letters. I had to quickly search what happened, and yeah, the overhead was bloody gorgeous. It was a hard overhead as well.
So well executed as well, isn't it? It's an unbelievable overhead kick.
It was ridiculous, and who knew Jerry Yates possessed that ability? But the fact is, he nearly scored from his own half as well.
Yes.
Which gets overlooked. So, look, Jerry Yates, you are turning into R9 Ronaldo.
Yeah, yeah. It's got to be said, he's looked pretty shocking in the Derby shirt up until this point. But in this game, I was like, who the hell's this guy? Where's he come from? So that was enjoyable. But I think you've got to give full credit to Plymouth for a pretty decent away performance, particularly by their standards. So well done to them. Derby will be disappointed that they didn't manage to get all 3 points in this one. Right, let's go on to the polls, Justin. This is the part of the show where we get the listeners involved. We ask them 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts and everything to do with the championship. So the first question we asked was this: what's the biggest derby involving teams currently in the EFL? Blackburn v Burnley, Cardiff v Swansea, or Sheffield United v Sheffield Wednesday?
I'll go Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. I think I said that in our preview on Friday. I think it's definitely the biggest derby in the EFL.
Yeah, I would say so as well. It's the fact that they're both in the same city, isn't it? That plays a big part for me. So 59% of people shared the Steel City derby. That was the winner in that poll. 26% said the South Wales derby, Cardiff v Swansea, and 15% said Blackburn v Burnley. I feel like Blackburn v Burnley's been a bit hard done to there. I think it's a bit of an underrated derby, that one. We have had a few other shouts as well. Watford v Luton, lest we forget, and a couple of other shouts for MK Dons v Wimbledon as well. Is that really a derby though?
It's not a derby.
It's a rivalry, isn't it? I suppose
it's a bitter
hatred.
Bitter hatred. Yeah.
Which of these managers do you think is the most likely to lose their job during the international break? Marty Cifuentes, Rob Edwards, or Tim Volter?
This Rob Edwards, he basically resigned in his post-match presses, didn't he? That's what it felt like anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it is Rob Edwards. Unfortunately, 72% of people said Rob Edwards, 16% said Tim Volter, 12% said Marty Cifuentes. And finally, what's the best sauce? Barbecue, brown, garlic mayo, or tomato?
Oh, his barbecue sauce is brilliant, but garlic mayo you can have on anything.
Oh, now you're talking.
You can have on anything.
I will have it on anything. It is just so good. I absolutely love garlic mayo. I'll tell you what is nice as well. What's it called? The Nando's Peronaise. You ever had that?
Yeah, the Peronaise is good. I'm surprised you go for that, actually.
It's not that spicy, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. You're a salt man, aren't you? Yeah.
I just like salt.
You got the appetite of a 17th century peasant.
The Peronaise is very nice, though. But garlic mayo was the winner in this poll. 30% of people said garlic mayo, 29% said tomato, 25% said barbecue, 16% said brown. I've got a deep hatred for brown, Justin. All because...
It's just vinegar.
Well, I hate it because I'm a colourblind man, and on many occasions I've mixed up tomato and brown sauce. So it's
always a sweet surprise.
It's really not. It's the worst kind of surprise you can possibly get.